How does money work? Most people think that money comes from the government. The reality is that money doesn't come from the government. The government is not something that actually prints money. The government is made up of politicians. Money is printed by the Fed, the Federal Reserve. If you look at a dollar bill, it doesn't say it's a dollar bill. It's a Federal Reserve note. And in business, a note is a loan. This note is for all debts, public and private. Back 120 years ago, we had the situation where the national banking era was coming and they needed to create the Federal Reserve. In 1912, they created the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, and they started printing money. So most people are first, you're bartering when you're trading time and you're trading for different in the market for different things. Then you have currency. Currency is where you're able to actually use a piece of paper or something for that instead of actually trading something for the actual goods. You are now being able to use currency. And after hundreds of years with the different systems that were set up, Rothschilds created the banking system. The first Bank of England was created in 1694. And after that, all of this situation started creating fractional reserve currency. And fractional reserve currency means that you only have to keep some money in the bank. And originally you have currency that was backed by gold, backed by silver, and it was finite. Once you have fractional reserve currency, then you only need to keep a fraction of that money in the bank. And so that creates more excess reserves. The reality now is that you have fiat currency. Fiat currency has no meaning beside what we give it. So there's nothing backing up our money today. And so most people think that the government is printing money. The government doesn't print money. Money is printed by the Fed, the Federal Reserve. If you look at a dollar bill, it doesn't say it's a dollar bill. It's a Federal Reserve note. And in business, a note is a loan. This note is for all debts, public and private. The reality of the situation is that you have fiat currency, which is why we can rip up a dollar bill and it means nothing. When you rip up a dollar bill, it has no meaning in the first place. And so you have fiat currency here where the bank doesn't have to keep any money. And so as they're printing money, I'm going to go through exactly how it works because the government really runs it all. So 100 years ago, they created a situation where the bankers and the politicians both were in a situation together. So you have bankers and politicians. When you go to the bank, you're able to use that money and they give you loans for your money and they charge interest. The interest is not just a number that they use to add for the cost of money. Interest is actually a banker's commission. And so the politicians are then able to charge the people something that we call tax. And we actually had a revolution because of taxes. Ben Franklin said that the main reason for us having the American Revolution is because of the taxes that England was charging to the colonies. So now we've entered into a system where we are willing to pay taxes, and then we're talking about, do we want to increase or lower taxes, but not abolish taxes. And that's what the revolutionaries really wanted, is that's what the Boston Tea Party was all about. Boston Tea Party was all about, hey, you're not going to tax our goods, so we're going to dump them into the harbor. But now we just accept it. Now we just live in a world where taxes are what taxes are, and in reality, it doesn't have to be that way. The government is profiting off of taxes, the bankers are profiting off of interest, and so the Fed, just like the Federal Express, is a private institution, so is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve Bank is not a federal institution. The Federal Reserve Bank is a private institution that is owned by the banking cartel and runs the banking cartel of America and of the entire world. When most people think that you're printing money, the government does not print money. The Fed prints money, and I'm going to go into exactly how that works. So the government's going into debt, right? We have over $30 trillion of debt in America right now for the government. And so what that means is that while we're going to war, while we're going back and forth on different political issues, different social issues, different situations out in the world, the government is accumulating debt. In order to pay that debt, they print treasury bonds. These treasury bonds are then used and sent out to the people and be able to get a government deposit. which then turns they print a government check, and this situation allows the government to then go make a commercial bank deposit. And so commercial bank deposits are just like you go to the bank, you put your money into the bank. It's a commercial bank deposit. That word commercial means that it's private, right? We're talking about in real estate, you have residential and commercial. Commercial means business. And so commercial banks, Bank of America, JP Morgan and Chase, Wells Fargo, that's where you go make commercial bank deposits. With fractional reserve currency, they have to keep reserves in the bank. For a long time, it was 10%. As of March 2020, right in the beginning of the pandemic, the government and the banks do not have to keep any reserves at all. There is a 0% reserve ratio, which allows them to go lend out your money. And so this excess reserves they use to create bank loans. And so you go to the bank and you get a bank loan, and what they do with your money is they then loan it out to other people. And so they print new money for every single time that you're taking a loan. That money is new money. That money is not the money that other people put in. They use that money to pay out the bankers in interest and to pay out the government in taxes. That way the bankers and the politicians can boast profit off the whole situation. And so as they loan out the money to the people, then they go use it in their business. They go use it to buy goods and services. They go trade it in the marketplace, just like the original system of bartering was used. But now we have currency. And so you have old money, which is the money that you actually put into the bank. And then you have the new money, which is the money that they print to be able to loan your money out to other people. And in this situation, they're consistently printing new money, loaning it out to people so that they have more excess reserves to loan out to the people, then more loans, then more deposits, and then this whole system trickles down over and over and over again to where your money is meaningless. And so the dollar bill has consistently gone down in value over time. The dollar bill has consistently devalued itself as we print and print and print more money. And one of the major things that happened during the pandemic is that they printed money, $6 trillion of money that they gave out in SBA loans and they gave out in government checks, right? These government checks that you received, the money, the stimulus check, that's a government check that they give to the people, and then the people go make a commercial bank deposit. Once you have this government check, they put it in the bank, they loan out your money, and then it just creates this never-ending system of going down into debt and debt. It's a perpetual cycle of the economy having busts and booms and recessions and depressions, and the whole time they're able to profit off of the situation. The whole time you have the hidden tax as well of inflation. We typically use inflation as a way of saying the increase of costs of goods in America, right? How the price of goods goes up or down is inflation, or deflation rather, if it's going down. But inflation is really the biggest hidden tax. It's a hidden tax because every time that inflation goes up, your goods and services are costing more. And because it costs more and it's being taxed, the government is able to receive more money on the taxes and be able to do whatever they do with your taxes. And then the banks are able to loan out more money, and this whole process keeps going and going. So you have, let's use $10 as a price of goods, 7% sales tax in Florida. Every state's a little different. 70% of taxes, of sales tax, goes to the government. Now inflation goes up to what it is right now, right? 8.3%. And so this same $10, same good that cost you $10 now costs you $10.83. And now the hidden tax of inflation is that now you're actually getting charged 0.578 or 76 cents instead. This extra 6 cents goes to the government. And so now this situation here, $10.83, the 70 cents, instead of getting 70 cents in taxes, they're getting 76 cents in taxes. And now imagine how this changes for every single $10 that is spent on every single time that you buy food, every single time that you do anything. The government is making more money off this situation. And so it's just a never-ending cycle of ups and downs, of loaning out money, of depositing money, of business owners getting loans, of personal people getting loans, and then creating this nonstop situation to where now, if you look at the money supply is so much larger than it ever was. And so this is going to be a repetitive cycle over and over again so that they can create new money. They don't have to keep your money anymore. They pay out this old money. The money that you put into the bank goes to pay for politicians so that they can get taxes, goes to the bankers so they can charge interest, and then creates this never-ending cycle. Again, most people think that the government is printing money. The government doesn't print money. The government profits off the Fed printing money. Banks don't print money. Banks don't have their own currency. They are getting charged interest from the Federal Reserve so that they can charge interest to the people, and that's what's going on right now. And so this is how money has always worked since 1694. In the beginning of this whole situation, 1694, you have the Bank of England, the Bank of Scotland, the Rothschilds are creating the different national banks so that they can create one currency. And in this situation, as they come into America, right now we have England, which was running America before the Revolution, and they are the ones providing the currency. And so we're still living under the British rule. We're still going into this situation where we have the Rothschild money, the Bank of England, the Bank of Scotland, the Bank of Austria, these big major national banks that are now created the Bank of America. And so the Bank of America is just a commercial bank that uses money just like JP Morgan to create this situation. And so it's important to understand how money works so that you can be able to live in a state of flow with how you create money. If you don't know the ins and outs of something, it's important to get into the game. If you want to be successful in life and business, it's important to understand how money works. So what can you do about this? What can you do about the way that money is printed? What can you do for success with money? Because money is not everything, but money allows you to do the things that you want to do in life. And I would love to say that money doesn't matter, but the reality is, in order to travel, in order to go out for nice things, in order to put food on the table for your family, you have to understand how money works so you can receive money for goods and services, receive money for whatever it is that you're trading your time for. And once you move into prosperity, you'll be able to understand that you can't trade your time for dollars. And so most people are trading their time for dollars. Most people are employees. Most people are in a situation where they're going to work, getting paid an hourly wage or a weekly salary. So it's important for you to understand how money works so that you can move into prosperity. We have to be in a state where we understand money so that we can create money, so that we can put food on the table for our families, so that we can live in the good life. And you want to be able to have money to be able to move in and out of different situations because money creates freedom. Owning a business does not create prosperity. Owning a business creates freedom for you to do things in your terms, in your time frame. And so a lot of people are employees, and this is straight out of Robert Kiyosaki's book Cash Flow Quadrant, or Rich Dad Poor Dad. But most people are employees. They're trading their time for dollars. They're getting paid an hourly wage or a weekly salary. And then people think, hey, you know what? I'm going to start my own business. And so they become self-employed. And people that are self-employed might have more autonomy over their time, but they're really paying themselves for a job. And so both of these situations, you still have a job until you move into being a business owner. And when you have a business owner, you have systems. You have the people working for you. You have systems working for you so that you can be in a state where you have money flowing to you easily and effortlessly. And the last situation here is to be into I, which is investor. That's when money is working for you. That's when you're able to have money that you'd be able to move over here, put it over into this situation, invest it into this business, into this asset, so you can continue increasing your cash flow. Because one of my mentors, Matt Sapala, he breaks down cash flow and understanding that back in the day, cash was king. But today, cash flow is king. Being able to have cash flowing to you easily and effortlessly. That's an affirmation that you can say every day, is that money flows to me easily and effortlessly. I am living in the law of prosperity. I am understanding how money works. I am improving my dialogue with money. These are different affirmations that you can say over and over again to yourself to program your subconscious mind to be attracting money. And so understanding how money works is important for you so that you can be in the flow, so that you don't have to stress, you don't have to have anxiety, you don't have to have feelings of not being able to produce, not being able to put food on the table, not being able to go where you want to go, to have the things you want to have, not because it's important to have these things, to have nice things. That's not the point. The point is to be able to have control over your time, have control over your money, and be able to do the things that you want to do in life. That is why it's important to understand how money works.